What's up, everybody? David, Pro Duo Flippers here. Today we're just going to talk about 10 items that I've recently sold that possibly you guys are overlooking, so let's get to it. All right, so like I said, I'm David from Pro Duo Flippers. My wife Melissa and I both resell full-time, pretty much only on eBay. We do just a tiny bit on Poshmark and Amazon. We're really not putting any work in there anymore, and we do sell some stuff locally. But we are full-time sellers. That is what we do for a living. That is our only income. If you haven't followed me before, you can also check us out on Instagram, Pro Duo Flippers there. Anyway, today like I said, we're going to talk about 10 items that I've recently sold in the last couple weeks or so that maybe you guys are overlooking if you're outsourcing, looking at thrift stores or auctions or wherever it is that you source. So I'm just going to tell you how much I paid for it, how much it sold for, how much shipping and fees were, and how much the profit was, and just kind of give you an idea of some of these items that you may be overlooking when you're outsourcing. So anyway, here we go. Number one is this vintage wood jointed doll. So I wasn't even really sure what this was. When I was looking up comps, I couldn't find anything exactly like it. And because of that, I decided to list it higher than I thought maybe it would sell for. I really wasn't sure. So it sold for, as you can see here, it sold for $50. I really had no idea. I thought about listing it at like $25 just to see. I listed this at $50 and it sold within a couple of days. So these unique items can do very well if they're older and vintage, and you can tell that it's just not something that was bought in the store that's handmade or something. But basically anything that's unique, you should just be taking the time to look up and see if they might be worth something. But anyway, I bought this in a lot of older, vintage type items at an auction. I think I maybe $2 into this because it came in a group of stuff and I only paid like $12 for the whole lot. So maybe I'm $2 in. It sold for $50. Fees on this were about $7. I haven't shipped it yet, but it's first class. This is something that sold this morning, so it's going to go first class. So I'm thinking about $5, and so profit will be about $36 on it. So that's a great profit. If you can get profit like that on all your items, you'd be making a lot of money, I think, assuming you can find enough items. Anyway, that's number one. Number two, is this Scuba breathing apparatus. I've done quite well with the scuba gear in the past. This is probably the fourth or fifth scuba item I've sold before. Usually I find these at the thrift store or at auctions, and often at the thrift stores I think they don't really know what they are, so they tend to price them fairly cheap. This one I paid a little more for because it had a couple other pieces with it. I paid, I think, about $15 at the auction. Anyway, it sold within a week, in less than a week, and it sold for $125 shipped. So fees on this one were $16. I think this will fit in a medium flat rate box, so it's going to ship for about $13. And this sold internationally through the global shipping program. So that makes this one a profit of $81. So that's an amazing profit. I wish I could get profit on stuff like this all the time. But anyway, this one also sold today. So these first two items sold today, haven't been shipped yet. But the next one I think was sold yesterday or the day before. Or over the weekend anyway. It went out this morning. Is these pieces of china plates. So I don't really do a lot with china, but if I see like the thrift store will often sell like a whole set of them, or at a garage sale or a estate sale or something like that, they might just be selling a whole like I said, a whole set. It may not even be a complete set. It just may be like 8 plates and 4 cups or 3 saucers or whatever. Anyway, I will tend to look up those, see if they sell fairly well as parted out, like maybe like 3 dishes here or 4 cups here or something like that. So I will take the whole set. I wouldn't want to package and ship the whole set, but I will divide it into groups. So I will divide it into like 4 plates or 3 saucers or whatever it is, and sell those together for people who are looking to replace broken plates or something like that. So on this one, I'm not really sure. I can't remember how much I paid for this. I remember I bought it at the thrift store. I want to say I paid like $25 or $30 for it. I think I divided it up into like 4 lots. A couple of them sold quite a while ago. And anyway, this one's sold over the weekend for $40. It went in a medium flat rate box for $13. Fees on it were $5. So I'm not really sure, so that's $22 minus, not counting what I paid for it in profit. So I would say probably off the box, I'm going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 to $80 of profit. But anyway, that's something you can look out for. Maybe not trying to sell the whole set together, because you're going to have different shaped things. It's going to have to go in a really big box and really well padded. But if you have just 4 plates or something, it's pretty easy to put them in and just a kind of a smaller squarish box with a couple layers of bubble wrap in between each piece, and then wrapping all of it together with even more padding between the plates in the box. But anyway, so look for those. Maybe look them up. Make sure that they are going to sell, because you can find a lot of old china out there, and I don't think all of it's worth money, but look up the pieces and see if you can make some money there. All right, so I'll move on to the next one, and that is rollerblades. So you can see that this pair here is sold for $80. So you want to look out for a couple brands. You just always want to look up comps. I'm going to say that across the board for anything that you're thinking about buying and to resell, is look up comps. But the actual brand of Rollerblades. So not just, I mean, Rollerblades is kind of the generic term that people use, but Rollerblade is actually a brand, right? So Rollerblades do well. Sometimes K2 ones do. There's a lot of different brands that do pretty good. Those ones are pretty common, I think, that do fairly well. And then if you want to look up anything that's like for roller hockey or something like that. So these ones are the brand Mission. So they did pretty well. These ones sold, I think this came from my thrift haul from like a week ago. So they sold within a week. I paid $8 for them at the thrift store. They sold for $80. The fees on that were $10, and they cost $18 to ship. And so the profit on these were $44. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Number 5 is golf shoes. If you're not already looking at golf shoes, you probably should. I think they're, I mean, golf is a hugely popular sport, and I think there's also a high instance of maybe people taking up golf and then not golfing very much and then quitting. But anyway, I pick up golf shoes all the time. I think this also came from my thrift haul a week ago, in which I picked up 4 pairs of golf shoes, and I think that 2 or 3 of them have already sold. Anyway, these are Under Armour golf shoes. They sold for $50 shipped. I paid $8 for them at the thrift store. Fees on these were $7, and shipping cost $8. So $27 profit. So that's pretty good profit there. Move on to the next one would be vintage hats. So this one is a pretty good sale for vintage hats. It sold for $40. I think it only took a couple weeks. I bought it a couple weeks ago at the thrift store for $2. So $40, sold for $2. No, I paid $2, sold for $40. It cost me $5 in fees and about $4 to ship. And so profit on this was $29. So I like hats. I think I don't always do great with hats, but it's just something that interests me. And so I enjoy picking them up and selling them, even if I don't sell them for a ton. But almost any hat that I sell typically will sell for at least, at the bare minimum, like $9, $8.99 or something. But I've sold these vintage hats for as much as like $150, $160 if you have the right hat. So you want to look for just something that's cool. Some desirable features are made in the USA for sure. Like the brand K brand or K products. The most important thing that I've seen for these vintage trucker type hats is that they're made in the US. And then patches do well. Embroidery sometimes does well. And then you also, not just these trucker hats, but also look up Western hats, because there's a lot of money in those too. So I've sold some Western hats for as much as $150 or so. They do require a bigger box, but they're not very heavy, so they usually go for less than 2 pounds. But they can do well too. So just keep an eye out. If you're at the thrift store and you're skipping the hat section, maybe just walk by and see what's there. And if you see something that looks like an older hat, maybe check it out. All right, so let's move on to the next one. That is number 7, and is ski boots. So for a long time, I just didn't want to deal with ski boots, even though I see them quite a bit here in Idaho where I live, where we're not too far away from skiing, downhill skiing in the snow, you know, type of thing. So these ones I picked up on the same thrift haul a week ago. They sold over the weekend, and they sold for $200 shipped. So not all ski boots are going to do this well, though I think you'll more likely be, for the ones you find at the thrift store, you'll more likely be maybe in the $80 range. But $80 range still makes sense, and I'll show you what I mean when we talk about the numbers here. So I paid $26, which is much more than I usually spend on ski boots at a thrift store. Maybe I would normally be in like the $8 to $10 range for buying them. And then since it sold for $200, the fees were higher too. The fees on this were $26, and then it cost me $21 to ship. So I'm usually in like the $18 to $22 range for shipping. So on this one, so in this one, they sold for $200. I paid $26. The fees were $26 and shipping was $21. So my profit was $127. That's a great profit. I don't usually profit that high on ski boots, but it would normally be more like I paid $10. I sold them for $80. Fees on that would be about $10, and then shipping would be about $18. So we're looking at about what, $36 out of $80. So more likely a $44 profit or so typically. And like I said, always just look up comps and make sure that you are buying the right ones. And then one more note on the ski boots is make sure that somewhere on there you can see the sizing on it. So they can be kind of confusing because a lot of them don't have the normal type sizing you'd see. They might have what they call a Mondo sizing, which would be like 26.0 or something like that. And then you might need to go on Google and look up some kind of conversion chart to figure out what size they are, or just put in your listing the Mondo size and let other people figure it out. But if you can't find the size anywhere, which sometimes is the case because sometimes they just put stickers on the toes and they come off and then you can't find the sizing. I would probably, unless they're a really high-end boot, I would probably just pass on the ones if you can't find some kind of size on them because it can be kind of a pain. But anyway, ski boots. They're big, they're heavy, they're really not that bad to ship if you have the right size box. I just put each one in a bag and throw it in the box without any padding or anything, and I've had zero problems that way. So they're pretty tough. Anyway, $44 profit on a normal one. This one was $127 profit, so loving that. All right, next is kind of in the same category. Number 8 would be snowboard boots. So same kind of thing, except these are not quite as heavy as ski boots. This pair I picked up at the thrift store at the same thrift haul. I did really well on that thrift haul. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it on the week before. A lot of it's already sold. These ones I bought at the thrift store, paid $8 for them. They sold for $75 within a week. Fees on that were $10 and shipping on them were $20. So kind of the same thing, just throw them in a bag each. I use boxes that are 8 by 12 by 16, I believe. And those boxes work well for 3 of the things on this list: snowboard boots, ski boots, and rollerblades. It makes it pretty easy. And I typically will send those either FedEx or I'm starting to also see that UPS is fairly cheap too. So one of those ways. So if I didn't say, it was $75 sold, $8 in purchase price, $10 in fees, and $20 in shipping for a profit of $37. All right, so number 9 is one of my favorite categories. It's one of my favorites because the profits can be really high. So, and that is in vintage coats. So you can see this one here sold for $115 shipped. And typically I'll pick these up at the thrift store or occasionally at auctions. State sales can be really good because they tend to be, you know, I hate to say it, but some, you know, when people pass away, some older people, they tend to have some old jackets, and that's also where the vintage hats often come from. So you can find these at estate sales or thrift stores where they're donated, or even at auctions if auctions are doing some estate type items as well. But anyway, this one I found at the thrift store and it was only $8, sold for $115. Fees on this were $15 and shipping was only $9. So that's an $83 profit. So vintage coats can do really well. So you kind of want to look for a few different things. Maybe brands are always good. This one was a Woolrich, which is a good brand for vintage items. This one had a few things going for it. So 1, it was Woolrich. 2, it was an actual wool coat. And 3, it had like a Sherpa type of lining in it. And so wool, Sherpa, canvas, all those things can be pretty good when suede, even some leather can be pretty good for vintage type jackets or coats. So I don't look so much at other vintage clothing, but I do for outerwear. It seems like it's easy to spot and it usually does fairly well. Even if it only sells for $60, $70, it still would have been a great profit. But this one, an $83 profit. So, and then the last one I want to talk about is something a little bit smaller that a lot of people might be overlooking, and that is just bicycle saddles or bicycle seats. So you can see here that this one sold for $40. Usually you can pick these up at thrift stores or sometimes garage sales for really cheap. I tend to pay maybe between $2 and $5 for these. This one I paid $3 for at the thrift store. Sold for $40. Fees on it were $5 and shipping was only $4 because they're really lightweight. Came off of like a higher end bicycle is typically the ones I'm looking at that are kind of sleek and small and lightweight. Anyway, the profit on this one was $28, which is great. It just goes in a padded bubble mailer, first class shipped, super easy to list. What you'll tend to find on these is you can find ones that almost look brand new because people will buy higher end bikes and they'll take off the seat before they even use the bike. And that's what this one was. It's just a brand new seat that's been taken off a bike that somebody else put whatever saddle that they wanted to put on there. Maybe a nicer one, maybe one that was even lighter because they want to make their bike really lightweight, or maybe one that had more padding because it's I don't know if you guys have ever ridden road bikes, but it's not super comfortable until you get used to it. That's why they make padded cycling shorts and stuff like that. But anyway, so keep an eye out for these. I picked these up throughout the year. I probably sell 10 or 20 of these a year, easy. But they're super easy to list and ship and everything. So keep an eye out for those. So anyway, that's my list of 10 items that maybe you're overlooking. Hopefully some of these will help you and you'll think about it next time you're outsourcing, and maybe you'll pick one of these up and make some money. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Follow us on Instagram, like I said, Pro Duo Flippers there as well. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever you want to do with this video. It helps me keep making this content and helps other people see it as well. So anyway, get out there and hustle, guys. Thanks.